Radical Radio Collective.
Good afternoon, listeners. You're listening to 4ZZZ 102.1 FM. This is Eco Radio, Australia's longest running peace and environment radio show.
Maybe.
We are taking over your middle of the day, middle of the week, start of the month airwaves, almost a pinch and a punt.
Last month of the year, Dave.
It is, yeah surprisingly.
Time flies.
Yeah, 12 comes after 11.
That is true.
My name is Dave, my pronouns are he, him.
My name is Zack, and my pronouns are he, they.
And I want to start off by acknowledging and paying my respects to the custodians in the country in which we broadcast. We're located in the city of Mungajin on Turrbal, Yagara and Yugapa land. I also want to acknowledge and pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are listening in today. Our radio waves reach Kabi Kabi and Yinambara country in the north, Waka Waka country in the west. In the east, we pay our respects to the Quandamooka people, and down south we reach the Commonwealth, Ngarrawal, Mununjali, Wanjerabara, Yugambeh and Bundjalung countries. Thank you to No Idea for all the great ideas. That was a really interesting discussion about the loneliness epidemic. I wonder if maybe community radio could play a part in releasing the effects of loneliness by listening to real people in real situations here in Brisbane.
What you should do is actually adopt us as your parasocial relationship, and that will fix your loneliness.
Not a doctor.
Parasocialism is the way to fix loneliness.
But listening and then subscribing and then volunteering is a way to become a part of the community. And there's all different sorts of communities here at 4ZZZ. We've been going for 50 years. So,
almost.
That's almost 50 years. So that's a lot of communities who have punched a niche into this station and have found their communities and a voice to be amplified. The voices we're going to be amplifying this week on the show, I'll be interviewing Audrey Barucchi, the co-founder and CEO of People for Nature, about their alternative to COP30. And Zack, you'll tell us all about the new federal environment laws.
Yeah, so we've finally had some updates to our federal environment legislation after 25 years.
25 years, yeah. So if you're into that, or if that sounds like something you could be into, then keep your ears tuned to 102.1 FM. Zack?
Yes.
Can you tell me about these new environmental federal reforms?
I absolutely can. So on Friday, the Federal Parliament passed environmental protection legislation that will modernise and improve environmental laws that had not been updated since 1999, 26 years ago. And some of that has been described as broken and insufficient, outdated, and requires fundamental reform, according to a commissioned independent review by Professor Graham Samuel in 2020, and that is in reference to the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation, or EPBC Act. The review criticised both the environmental and business regulations of the 1999 EPBC Act, with Labor seeking to strengthen environment and wildlife protection while improving economy, community and business outcomes. Prime Minister Mr. Anthony Albanese says, "Everyone agrees that the laws as they stand are broken and need to be reformed. Getting these laws passed is vital to protect our environment and to boost productivity in our economy." So we're going to go through some of those key amendments in that new EPBC Act now. Number one, there is going to be the creation of a National Environmental Protection Agency. This will allow an independent regulator to oversee, enforce laws and impose penalties in cases of environmental breaches. The penalties for significant environmental breaches will be higher too. The Environmental Minister, currently Mr. Murray Watt, can delegate some of his power to the new Environmental Protection Agency, authorising them to decide whether a project can go ahead or not. This is not a completely independent process, though, and occurs at the minister's discretion. In cases where breaches of the EPBC Act are suspected, the Environmental Protection Agency can issue stop work orders of up to 14 days while they investigate. So, yeah, a National Environmental Protection Agency. That's awesome.
With some teeth?
With some teeth by the sounds of it, but we'll get into it a bit later. But there's also going to be some national environmental standards. So the second point of the new EPBC Act is exemptions have been removed for native forest logging and land clearing in high-risk areas. Previously, native forest logging had exemptions regarding national standards, quote, unacceptable impacts and net gains, but will now be subject to the same regulations under the EPBC as every other industry and will be monitored by the environmental protection industry. The land clearing in high-risk areas part had a particular focus on the Great Barrier Reef catchment, where assessment will need to be done when clearing land within 50 metres of creeks and rivers. Mm-hmm. Mr. Watt says what it means is that if that clearing is going to have a significant impact on nationally protected environment matters, then those who want to do the clearing will need to seek an EPBC assessment and an EPBC approval. Additionally, clearing of vegetation older than 15 years will no longer be exempt from that assessment. So Australia will also have some national environmental standards to provide clear guidelines in environmental matters. This is a piece of legislation that is currently being drafted by the Labor government, with many of the other amendments depending on the standards set. So for things like that Environmental Protection Agency, the amount of, I suppose, environmental protection they do depends on the legislation in these national environmental standards.
Yeah.
So Labor has produced two drafted standards, one of matters of national environmental significance and the other on biodiversity offsets. A standard on First Nations engagement, along with others, are in the development process at the moment. Number 4. Large emission projects such as coal and gas will now be required to disclose their emissions and emission reductions plans to reach net zero by 2050. This has been criticised by Senator Larissa Waters, the leader of the Greens, for not introducing a climate trigger that could stop coal and gas approvals based on emissions in the first place. Additionally, Amanda McKenzie from the Climate Council says that although these changes are beneficial for native forests, new coal and gas projects get a free pass on climate pollution. So they've kind of gone part of the way with those emissions emission standards, I suppose, but they haven't gone the full way with it.
So industries are forced to report their emissions?
Yes, so they have to
are not forced to do any reduction or anything past that.
They need to have an emission reductions plans to reach net zero by 2050. So it needs to be a plan, but that doesn't necessarily suggest that it's a plan they have to
abide by.
Have to follow. Number 5, clarification of unacceptable impacts and net gain definitions and tests implementations in respect to development projects. These terms and legislation surrounding them had previously been vague, but these amendments sought to rectify that. Developers will now be required to demonstrate that the damage caused by their projects to the environment are offset by their actions leading to net environmental gain. Projects that cause unacceptable impacts will be rejected. So some of these terms have just been clarified a bit better for businesses so that they can go ahead with certain things regarding their projects.
Right, okay.
So number 6, the regulations around how developers offset the damage they do to the environment have been altered too. Previously, if a developer damaged an ecosystem or species, they must offset the damage caused directly by them by restoring that either ecosystem or kind of like the ecosystem for a particular threatened species. Now the government has proposed to introduce a restorations contribution fund that the developer can pay into rather than finding their own fund. Additionally, like-for-like ecosystem reparations have also been relaxed slightly. So essentially what that means is if you were to destroy some eucalyptus woodlands as a part of your development, you wouldn't necessarily have to contribute funds into restoring eucalyptus woodlands in other areas. It could be a different ecosystem. And I'm sure you could see there would be a bit of I don't know how you describe it, but
there could be like simple money cuts, right? So some ecosystems might be easier to restore than others.
Yeah, or there could be particular, you had like some rainforest, right? Rainforest, very rare ecosystem, and getting some of that restored is much more difficult than, say, some scrubland potentially.
Yeah.
So you could see some ecosystems that get disproportionately damaged and some that get disproportionately improved upon just because of their ease. But
so if they destroy rainforest to do whatever, they don't have to then restore a rainforest.
Not necessarily. It said the rules have been, like the like-for-like rules have been relaxed a bit. I don't know the extent to that, which that will be applied though, but there is the potential for that to occur, sort of thing. So, number 7, the Environmental Minister's power has also slightly been reduced. Previously, concerns existed over the Environment Minister having too much power in approving developments and deciding the conditions applied to those developments in respect to preserving threatened species or ecosystems. For example, the Environment Minister had the power to approve coal or gas projects that breached environmental laws if it was determined as being of national interest. This exemption has now been removed. The Environment Minister still retains an ambiguous level of power in this area, though, as they only need to be quote-unquote satisfied that developments are adhering to certain environmental obligations, and then going back to those national environmental standards that will, like those standards set also impact this area too.
Yeah.
Senator David Pocock and experts from the Biodiversity Council have pointed out that the Environment Minister still has the discretion on how the national environmental standards are applied to certain industries or actions, so this is quite a fickle area.
Yeah, right. So it depends on the government of the day and that particular minister.
And if they had like quite weak national environmental standards, then it's a lot easier to get some of these approved in the first place, even though to the layman they may appear as though this is quite a significant bit of damage. If the government has it written in their legislation that this is an appropriate level of damage, then nothing can be done about it.
Yeah, right.
So number 8, the approval process of projects have also been changed. A 30-day process now exists to streamline the project approval pathway, and developers that provide sufficient information upfront will be approved faster. The federal government can now delegate power to state governments in deciding whether projects go ahead, and situations where environmental assessments may be duplicated by the state and federal governments have been removed, allowing for faster approval. So that means that instead of having the state government and the federal government both doing an environmental impact assessment for a particular project, the federal government can just decide that the state government can take care of it. And as I'm sure you're aware, given that that there's different governments in charge of every state compared to the federal government, the standards could be different between the two of them.
Yeah.
There will also be clear go and no-go zones that will be identified for development, giving greater certainty to businesses in some cases.
Okay, so that means that they can cordon off areas like we have with reef catchments, where there is to be no development in some places, or rainforests, or national parks, although there is some development happens in national parks. So they're identifying that there will be these no-go zones for industry. Yeah.
They're just making that a bit clearer so that those developments, like developers can decide where things will get, like projects will be done and whatnot.
Okay.
Number 9, coal and gas projects will have a water trigger, meaning they require federal approval for their water use.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's something they have to disclose to the federal government.
Right, just for coal and gas.
That's what it says in the articles that I read, so I presume so.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so the federal government chose to retain that right to do so when previous, they're probably was some lobbying about from the coal and gas industry about having that removed.
Yeah.
But they were firm on it and it's retained. So
Okay, that's interesting. I don't know if it's future-proofing. We were talking, and No Idea was talking about AI, and we've talked about how much AI or the data centres use water.
yeah.
It's interesting that that wasn't a part of the trigger. So maybe that's a bit of a blind spot for them, considering these rules haven't changed in 25 years.
Yeah.
They're still playing catch up with a lot of technology, I guess.
They always are.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of legislation, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because there's such a long approval process for these kinds of things. And even going back to the specific update to the EPBC Act, several people tried to get this passed previously. So we had Tanya Plibersek a couple years ago who tried to update it, but it was blocked by the West Australian Premier at the time.
Yeah, right.
So this is a very difficult process to sort of go through.
Yeah.
And the fact that something has been done at all is
impressive.
Kind of good.
Yeah.
Even though it might not be as strong as we initially wanted it to be, or particularly you and I, Dave. But it is an improvement nonetheless.
Okay, so in your
perspective.
analysis, good job, government.
I think any time that we update environmental laws, it's a good job.
Yeah.
Because, like we discussed, it's been 25 years since they were updated, and so many things have changed since then. We have such a better idea on how certain actions impact the environment, and we can compare it to other states regarding things like how good having an environmental protection agency is.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, to get back to it, the Labor government required support from the Senate to pass the bill and had been attempting to court both the Greens and Liberals ahead of the self-imposed deadline of Friday last week, but initially both parties wanted more concessions on environmental protection and business restriction aspects respectively. Ultimately, Labor secured support from the Greens by agreeing to implement the removal of land clearing exemptions in 18 months rather than 3 years, and the aforementioned reduction in the Environment Minister's power. So the Greens have signed off on this, which I think is a fairly good thing.
Indication.
Yeah, well, it's a lot better than the Liberals getting more business concessions.
Yeah.
So they came out on the right side of that one, I suppose.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see how the EPA, Federal Environmental Protection Agency, goes in the future. Hopefully they'll have some teeth.
Yeah.
And make a standard protection across the country.
I think the thing I would really want to see is have scalable penalties. You can't set a flat rate for environmental degradation, because particularly some of these larger companies that they have the funds to be able to pay anything and then extract a profit out of doing those destructive things. They just view that as this is just how much it costs to do the activity, rather than having it as a disincentive to not do it in the first place. A
fine isn't so much a fine for these people as it is a license to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is what I have to pay the government to get more profit.
Yeah, exactly. We see it in some of the an oil spill, for example, which I think there was one up in Western Australia at one point where they only paid a $25,000, a very minimal amount of fine. It was sub $100,000, and they got 25,000. They spilled 25,000 liters of oil into the ocean, and that amount of oil spill is just going to be a fraction of what they actually get, and then ultimately get a profit out of.
Made from profit. Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks for that, Zach. That was really nice to hear about all those different changes in the Act. And, I look forward to reporting on scalable fines.
It'll be interesting to see how it goes, but a lot of this will depend on those national environmental standards that will be set. So we will have to report on those potentially when they get approved.
All right. Well, Marky texted in talking about protecting the environment. One of our favourite texters, Marky texted in. He's currently pulling out asparagus and cassias, which are very difficult, especially the asparagus, very thorny. And he's requested the Ugly Duckling song, Endless Summer, which is exactly what we're looking at with climate change and endless summer. So you're listening to 4ZZZ. This is Eco Radio.
4ZZZ's Radio Reversal has gone digital. Since 2012, the collective have been building a record of radio theorising, organising, mistake-making, rethinking and community building that happens across this city. So, if 1 hour a week isn't enough for you, head to radioreversal.substack.com to learn more about the Radio Reversal podcast, or listen to the full episodes via your favourite podcasting app.
You are listening to 4ZZZ. This is Eco Radio. I am Dave.
I am Zack.
And we just heard then from Ugly Duckling with Endless Summer. That was a request by Marky.
Thanks for that, Marky.
Thanks, Marky.
I think you've requested that one before, and I added it to my list of songs that I play pretty regularly after that.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
And then do you go straight into Outcast, Tomb of Boom?
Sometimes.
That's a pretty big whiplash.
I don't know. They're both rap.
Yeah, that's true. If you want to be a subscriber like Marky, you can go to 4zzz.org.au/support and become part of the family. Under 18s at $25, the same as pets. If anyone has any under 18s in their family, probably just as good as a pet. Concessions are $40, but if that's all you can afford, then we won't check. We're not the cops here, who cops' regular job, always checking on concession tickets.
Are they?
No.
Yeah.
If you do subscribe this month, you can go. This month is December.
That is.
You can go in the running to win the monthly subscriber prize, which is a $250 gift voucher at the End Bar in West End.
That's cool.
West End institution, doing a bit of a collaborative with a Brisbane institution, 4ZZZ.
And you can use that $250 however you want. If you want to use it on drinks, cool. If you want to use it to have some food, that's also cool. And then you can also take home some wine or some delicious bottles.
Yeah, they've also got merch at the end. I've seen people rocking around with the hats or the T-shirts.
That's nice. Spend on that too if you wanted to.
Yeah, if you need to get some new clothes,
Or if you know someone who is the End enthusiast, we are coming up to Christmas time.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
You could use your potential winnings on that to get some merch and give it to someone you care about.
Yeah, you could go and buy someone a subscription to 4ZZZ.
That too.
For Christmas. And if you win that subscriber prize, you get a bonus. So many things.
You're listening to Eco Radio, the radio of the future.
You are listening to Eco Radio, the radio of the future.
Thank you, small child.
Thank you, small child. Thank you, Zack. That was Teen Jesus and the Gene Teasers with Bait. And on the line now, I'm talking to Audrey Barucchi, the co-founder and CEO of People for Nature. Audrey, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So COP30 just took place in Brazil. For people who aren't aware, COP means the United Nations Climate Change Conference. This is where we get the Paris Agreements and the Kyoto Protocol. Audrey, you and the People for Nature decided to hold a alternative COP. Can you tell me about that?
So we held an alternative COP during COP. The idea, and you started with it, was that not many people actually know that a COP is happening every year. And for someone who's been working in the climate space for long enough, I think I got a bit frustrated about the lack of awareness, amongst everyday Australians, everyday citizens. So we wanted to run alongside COP. It is not a criticism of COP by any means. It's more an expansion of the citizen space and the citizen dialogue for climate. And so, we held the very first Alto COP here in Australia. It was actually the second Alto COP because it was held last year in a few countries across Asia. It was founded by a couple of organizations in Singapore. And we loved the idea. We love the idea of expanding the green zone of COP. So the green zone is where the civil society gathers during COP. We love that idea. We love the idea of bringing that space into the local community without having to fly all the way to Brazil.
Yeah, so it involved Zoom meetings and talks and different events all around the world, really. What was the outcome of Alto COP?
Yeah, so going back onto the idea of Zooms, yes, we did have a few online sessions, but the idea is to have, local dialogues. So it's really just to have small green zones in every local community. So we had, here in Australia, we had 53 events, in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Hobart, Wollongong, Newcastle. I'm probably forgetting quite a few.
Yeah.
And the idea is really to bring, the climate dialogue back into the local community, face-to-face in person, preferably, with local speakers, with local, solution offerings. And, making sure that we reconnect to the local reality because, although climate change is a global challenge, it's a global problem.
Yep.
It will be solved by, in the local, in each local community. And so really making sure that people are feeling connected to that challenge and how they can contribute. The outcome was, I think we're still navigating the amount of positive feedback we've received. I think it was great to see as many people. We had 1,400 participants across all locations. And I believe that, in the last time I checked, I think Australia sent just a bit under 500 delegates to Belém. So it's a pretty significant growth of awareness for everyday Australians. The outcome was really to have those dialogues, and I kept saying during the 4 days, Alto COP's not a destination; it's the start of a journey, a journey of transition of our economy, of our society, of our local communities. And so, I hope that we have helped forge some relationships, some alliances at the local level that can then, trigger some tangible actions in the year to come.
Yeah, well, you said the Alto COP wasn't a argument against COP30, the one happening in Belém. Instead, it was a way to get more eyes on the agreements. The COP30 conference ended with the Belém Declaration, which committed countries to work together towards a just and orderly, equitable transition away from fossil fuels. Australia put in a big push to host next year. However, they will be in charge of the COP negotiations instead. How will we do that while Australia is still the world's third largest fossil fuel exporter? And according to Greenpeace, Australia is ranked second in the world of biodiversity loss. How can we negotiate while still being implicit in the industries?
It's a great question, and I'd love to be able to answer that question. I think the COP has seen significant progress in signing agreements and agreeing on what we need to do. However, it has failed on delivering on those agreements. So we are coming out of COP30 with yet another agreement, despite the fact we have failed to deliver on, the most significant agreement that was the Paris Agreement.
Yeah.
Are things, worse than if we didn't have COP? No, absolutely not. I think COPs are critical, they're crucial, but I'm not quite sure that, they are meeting the emergency, they are meeting the ambition. And that's not just, with certain countries chairing certain negotiations, but it's also the presence of, corporate lobbyists, etc. So COP, despite not being a criticism of COP, was designed to be a COP where we walk the talk. And so that's why we have a strict no-fly policy. That's why we served only vegetarian food. We had a no-waste policy. And we think that, in this day and time, the signing more agreements is great, don't get me wrong, but we need some actions. We need some tangible actions. And that starts by, leading by example. And this is exactly what you just said. How can we have someone chairing negotiations that is still, one of the biggest polluter on the planet? I don't know. I'm not exactly sure that's a COP that walks the talk.
No. And especially, we were talking about the Paris Agreement there being one of the main points of COP, and that's, nearly, over 10 years old now. And that asked or said to the world, we need to limit average global heating to 1.5 since pre-industrial times. We're seeing in Australia, in our region, over 2 degrees of warming. I find it all really, depressing or infuriating. How can we do this change? How are we supposed to keep going to COPs?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of work to do in making sure that a greater number of Australians understand what's at stake. Because who we send to COP, we in this country elect. So I think we have to find ways to educate, to empower. And for me, it's not just the education part, is how do we play a bigger part as citizens? And I think we have, I was born in France. I've been here for almost 20 years. I love Australia and I call it home. But I still have this very strong, French kind of DNA going through my blood of going, democracy, citizenship are extremely important. We live in a world where only 12% of countries live in a democracy. We belong to those 12%. So we have a responsibility to call on that democracy, to think properly, and to organize ourselves to demand better action, better agreements, and countries and organizations that are held accountable for when they're not delivering on the agreements that they've signed. So I do believe, I started my career in climate change in the technology space, thinking that, somehow we would develop something really clever to get us out of this mess. And then I quickly realized that it was a little bit more complex than just developing a technology. And today I just dedicate my time to citizen-powered change and thinking, in a world where only 12% of us still, are living in a democracy, and those democracies are showing great signs of weaknesses. We have to start organizing ourselves, and we have a responsibility to act. We spread that knowledge, and I think I live in rural Queensland. I think there's a lot of people out there that don't quite understand the science, that don't quite understand what's at stake, because there's a lot of noise, because there's a lack of trust in science, and I think we need to repair that quite urgently. Yeah, absolutely.
Audrey, where can people find out more about People for Nature and the work that you do?
We have a website, peoplefornature.org.au. We're on pretty much, not all the big social media. I think we've got Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. So yes, we are keeping things small and real. We're a group of people. We have a train-the-trainer model or an ambassador model where people can get trained to go and educate their local community. So yes, lots of really cool things to do within People for Nature. But yeah, most importantly, we're just a group of people that care and that want to try to do our part. Simple but humble.
Well, thank you very much, Audrey, for joining me.
Thanks for having me on the radio. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. That was Audrey Barucchi, co-founder and CEO of People for Nature, who was talking about France. And yeah, France is just such a revolutionary society. They not really.
No.
They riot at a drop of a hat. They're quite known for it. Other revolutionary things you can do is some bushcare. This is the Bushcare Roundup.
It's a Bushcare Roundup. They've been pulling out weeds and then they put in trees. It's the Bushcare Roundup.
All right, taking place Friday the 5th of December at 5:30 in the afternoon. You can go to the Karawatha Rocks Track Twilight Walk. That's at Karawatha Forest Discovery Centre in Acacia Ridge. At 6:30, you can go to the Gold Coast ToadTrack Community Toad Bust. That's happening at Eddie Kornhauser Recreational Reserve in Eleanor.
On Saturday the 6th at 7 a.m, there's a Crosby Road Bushcare Working Bee down in Ascot. At 8:30 a.m, there's the Mother of Millions Bushcare, Lat 147 Fleming Road, Chapel Hill. And then at 8:30, there's the Gertrude Petty Place Bushcare. That one is at 26 Mount Gravatt Outlook Drive in Mount Gravatt.
And then on Sunday at 3 o'clock, you can go to the Extraordinary Kookaburra Bushcare. That's happening in Chamberlain Street in Tarragindi. At 3 o'clock, you can go, I love a good afternoon bushcare. You can go to the Bridgewater Park Bushcare, Bridgewater Park in Springfield. And then at 3:30, you can go to the Yeronga Bushcare Working Bee. That's at the Corso Park in Yeronga. And that's all we have planned for you today. Thank you very much for listening in, everyone. Thank you very much, Zack, for telling us about the update to the EPBC Act.
No worries.
And thank you very much for everyone that texted in, all of the subscribers that want to be part of the community radio station 4ZZZ. It's 50 years in your ears. Let's go out with Kneecap. This is No Comment feat Sub Focus. You're listening to 4ZZZ. This has been Eco Radio.
Probably a language warning for this one.
Oh, language warning. Boop, boop, boop. Language warning. All right.
Radical Radio Collective.
4ZZZ.